stated that earlier, I'm proud of the men and women of this department. Yes, we did find somebody that we thought obviously was the person, but we continued on. We continued on investigating. We continued on canvassing the areas. We continued on with video. And that's why we ended up where we're at now.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, I just want to continue to answer that question. It's an important one. And the answer to that is this, and I tried to convey it a couple of days ago. We broke ourselves out into teams. So while the Providence team and the state police team and the ATF team were working here in Providence to follow, develop whatever video evidence we can, which eventually led to all the steps that you've seen and are laid out in the affidavit, which is on our website, and it is multiple pages. You'll see the progression. So while the FBI we were working here. Now you may ask, well, what was it about Coventry that made us, for those of us who've been in law enforcement for a long time, why did we have to run that lead to ground? Here's why. When the FBI was not cooperative. When they entered the room to secure it, there were guns in the room. One of them had a laser sight. The witnesses had told us there was a laser sight used in the course of the attack. Okay, we had to run that to ground. We couldn't just not run that to ground. That was a very promising lead. But that's why you don't get over your skis about, and word choice is important. So while we had to test those ballistics and test the DNA off those guns, and that DNA ruled this guy out, okay? But we had to run that lead to ground. But while we're running that lead to ground over the course of Sunday, for the most part, my memory's correct, we were working other leads, which eventually led us through a recreation by the great work of the team, including the marshals, by the way, that are up here. Movements, image of our cooperating witness, witness comes in, and you've heard the rest. So, you know, this is the way these investigations work. You don't chase one and stop. We have chased more than one lead over the course of the last 4 to 5 days. There was one lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. So that's, at least in my mind, 5 different leads that one worked out, 4 didn't. But you're running them all down at the same time. So I can't offer any comfort in that regard, but I don't believe that we would have found this person any sooner, given the evidence that was available to us.
The way back.
Can you say why it took so long to get the tipster's tip? It looks like he posted on Reddit on Monday and then said on Reddit that he told the FBI. Was it lost in the FBI's tip?
We received the tip about that post and immediately acted on it. And so that's exactly what occurred. As soon as the tip came in, we had a tip center upstairs that was staffed, as I mentioned earlier, by detectives and agents. They were going through hundreds of tips that were coming in, hundreds. We were vetting them through, ruling them out, just like the general stated. We were making sure that whatever came in, we checked it to its entire to ensure that we weren't missing anything. And so when we got to that tip, obviously, it led us to that person that we wanted to speak with, and I told you the rest earlier. So.
Yeah, and I just want to complete that too, because this is important. This person had to come forward. That's why we put the picture out. Once we put the picture out, he came forward, right? But we didn't know who that person was. We knew about what was on Reddit, but we didn't know who that person was. That's why when we identified another person, we didn't know when that person came forward that he was the Reddit poster. He then told us he was. Okay, so all of these things kind of happened in that sequence.
Go ahead, Chris.
This Valente figure, this is a question for President Paxson. Do we know why he left school early in 2001? Did he have a history of mental illness that was expressed during that time or reported in that time?
No, we learned his name very, very recently, and we haven't had a chance to really dig into the records. But we will if it helps with the investigation.
This is another question about
we get a follow-up question.
This is another question about a student visa. You said he's here on a student visa now. What school is he affiliated with? He's here.
General,
Yeah, so he's not here on a student visa now. He was initially, and then he applied for and received lawful permanent resident status in September of 2017. Okay?
Thank you. Go right here.
What was Mr. Valente's profession, and how did you search his residence?
Again, as I stated earlier, we just identified who obviously that person, and this developed pretty quickly. So that's all part of the investigation that's coming.
And can you talk about, was there any interaction between him and law enforcement before he died?
No, not that we know.
Was
have a follow-up to her.
There you go.
That is, do you know any associates of his, family members, friends, roommates, and if there are any in the United States, did any of them come forward through the process of this investigation?
No, not at this time. This evolved extremely quickly. We've been at this for 6 days. And so here the person is, we're about to make an apprehension. As I stated earlier, he took his own life. But that's all part of the investigation that will continue about him.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for President Paxson, Chief Barrow said he had no known criminal history that you know of. You were asked about possible mental illness while he was here. When he was at Brown, did he have any grievances, disputes with anyone, any problems, any disciplinary issues, any problems at all that were documented?
Not that we know of at this point. I mean, again, these are very, very old records, you have to understand. We learned about this very recently. And I think going forward, as we want to learn more, we will cooperate with the investigation to give them the information they need.
Go ahead, in the white shirt.
Hi, Brittany, WCBB. This question is for Colonel Perez. You mentioned that Claudio primary focus from the beginning. If that's the case, can you elaborate more on why there was someone else detained initially and the lead that led you to that person to being detained initially if Claudio was the primary focus from the beginning?
Yeah, so...
And I have a follow-up.
Sure, Brittany. Great question. So we have received a tip about that first person. We have received a tip about him wanting to get a permit to carry a firearm. And so that led us to also learn that he was a person who potentially could be, it was just where he was denied and then he went to another department, led us there. So we had it vetted through. Obviously, the FBI responded, followed through that whole tip, ended up finding the person, taking him to custody, finding him with 2 firearms, with a laser. And so it took a while for us to be able to rule him out. But it was and as I stated earlier, as soon as the call came in, it was all hands on deck. And there was nothing that we were just going to say that is not anything that had to do with it, with this case. Obviously, we wanted to make an apprehension, and we went after that. So,
Yeah, I just want, if I could just jump in here, Mayor, I'm sorry to do that, but I think I heard you say that Mr. Valente was the suspect from the start.
Primary focus.
No, he became the primary focus yesterday at around this time. This name was not known to us until yesterday. So when our cooperator came in last night, we were able to track the car, get the name, and then we were in the position of, today, do we push that name out so that you can help us find this guy, or do we think we know where he is? And so that was the balance. That was that back and forth analysis in our minds, collective investigative team minds, was going on today. But his name did not come to us until yesterday. As I said yesterday, until you have the name, which we did not have until yesterday, after our press conference together, that's when this thing heated up. As soon as you have a name, I believe you can find anybody in this country. And the fact that this team was able to do it in around 24 hours, I think is a tribute to them, their hard work around the clock, to do exactly what we have been talking about doing, which is how long is it going to take? And it took, roughly 5 days. And that's a tribute to them.
Brittany, if I could just clarify further on that. So what I meant, obviously, it was that the image that we released within hours of that person of interest that was walking on Waterman Avenue around the corner, that was sent out within minutes. That became a primary focus of the investigation of that person of interest.
Yes. If I may, my follow-up. I believe it said the last address for Valente was in Miami.
Correct.
Have law enforcement in Miami been notified? Are they searching this last address for any potential evidence?
No, Brittany, absolutely. Yes, that address, I believe, was one that predicated in 2001. And so after federal and local were notified of that as well, also talked to the individuals that was at that particular residence to see if they had any type of connections or associations with Valente.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
In the way back.
Question for Coronel Perez, I'm sorry. For Univision in Spanish and Kansas, what's next? Do you have any leads on the motives como acaba de preguntar la colega, ya registraron la vivienda en la Florida. ¿Qué es lo que viene ahora, si es que saben cuál fue su motivo para matar a estas personas?
Sí, vamos a seguir. So the question was, what's next, right? What are we going to do next? And so la respuesta es que vamos a seguir obviamente trabajando con las organizaciones federales y también entre nosotros buscando esa inteligencia de quién es esa persona, qué motivo lo trajo aquí a la ciudad de Providence a cometer esta tragedia, este incidente. Pero eso va a tomar tiempo verdaderamente y vamos a tener que averiguar más para ver qué fue el motivo que llegó a esta ciudad.
¿Tienen alguna pista de qué podría haber sido? ¿Qué es lo que van a estar buscando ahora?
No, hasta el momento no. Esto obviamente, como acabo de explicar ahorita, lo identificamos hace poco.
Colonel. Go ahead. Right there.
I want to ask, what brought investigators specifically to New Hampshire? Does this person have a connection to New Hampshire? I know you said that the storage unit was in Pennsylvania.
So it was the financial records that the federal agency followed through the investigation that led us to learn that this person had rented there, so a storage unit. And so we responded immediately, and we found that the vehicle that we were looking for of interest was parked there.
Just one follow-up here.
Kate, go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit more to that, again, identification of the vehicle of interest and the person who did that? And as you said, there was video captured. Could you walk us through that aspect of this? Was this the witness who provided to you the vehicle? Can you walk us through how that vehicle of interest entered the investigation? And then
But yeah, it was part of the tip that was posted actually, and then also the tipster had called and had stated that this individual had a fob and was trying to enter a vehicle that was parked on Benevolent. And so because of that, we obviously knew there was a vehicle and there was a description of a vehicle. When we brought him in, he collaborated further on that vehicle. We put it out through Flock, the description, and we learned that within that time period, a certain amount of vehicles that came up with those description fit in it. So our detectives obviously stayed on that and ended up finding this vehicle with Florida plates, and that's how we ended up with that specific vehicle. Then we had learned that the vehicle also potentially could have changed their plates, and as I stated earlier, we were able to find the vehicle on Flock, actually get the actual plate, learn that it was a car rental, which brought us up to learn that that we needed to learn more at the rental place about the individual, which we did, and then further later. We find out, again, doing all the I think it was tremendous too. If you had a chance and an opportunity to see how much work was put in, because it was bits and pieces of information. It's almost like putting a puzzle together. You only have just a few pieces and you're building it. And that later on led us with the financial records to learn that he rented a storage unit in New Hampshire, and that's why we ended up.
Okay, your follow-up. To that one for the Chief or the Attorney General. You mentioned again weighing that public interest versus the information that was available to law enforcement at the time, as this person, again, considered armed and potentially dangerous, was out there. The chief just spoke to license plates changing on a variety of moments, if you will. But was it too fast moving? Talk to us about weighing again that providing information to the public with an armed and dangerous individual and vehicle use that involved multiple license plates and your decision not to sort of real-time inform the public of.
Yeah, so we knew last night, who this guy was and that he had rented a car in Boston. So the question becomes, is he going to return the car to Boston? We got information he might return it to Connecticut. He didn't return it when we thought he might be returning it to the information. We wanted to try to take him without him knowing. As soon as his name gets out there, he is going to be even more in the wind. And so the question becomes, if you think you might know where he is, right? Eventually you find the storage unit, right? So you're following that up. But initially you think he might return the car to Boston on Atlantic Avenue, I believe, or in Connecticut, perhaps to board a flight somewhere. You're weighing, take this guy because we know where he's going to be, and we're coming. And so I would say this afternoon, we were going back and forth on that. As the FBI and the ATF and our other partners, Providence Police, State Police, developed evidence as to where he was. Ultimately, in New Hampshire, we decided to pursue to that location. And there we found the car with those multiple plates that we were looking for, a Florida plate and a Maine plate on top of it.
General, right there, go ahead.
General, that DNA evidence, where was that tested? And also the firearms examinations. We've had some trouble with the state lab here. Where were those?
I just wanted to touch real quick, and I know ATF is going to be able to answer you that, but that's a great question, Mark. And the reason for that is because when the incident first happened, it was our BCI unit that responded and collected DNA and protected the integrity of that DNA and sent it out.
Thank you. The evidence collected, the DNA and the firearms were sent to the Connecticut State Police Lab. They had the best kept local capabilities to handle that type of evidence and do those type of examinations.
Clark, didn't follow up? You're good.
Thank you.
Wheeler, go ahead.
So is there an understanding of how he got to get the rental car in Boston, or what his movements were in the days and weeks before the shooting?
So if there's an understanding how he got to Boston to rent the car, is that?
Yeah, like where was he in the days and...
All right, you have been listening to breaking news tonight out of Rhode Island. There is another press conference that is currently going on in Boston. We're going to head there.
Loureiro in Portugal between 1995 and 2000. Although Neves Valente appeared to reside in Florida, between November 26 and November 30 of this year, he rented a hotel room in Boston. On December 1st, he rented a gray Nissan Sentra with Florida plates from a car rental agency in Boston. That same day, he drove to the vicinity of Brown University, where his car was observed intermittently between December 1st and December 12th. On December 13th, Neves Valente entered an auditorium on Brown University's campus during a study session and began shooting at students, killing Ella Cook and Mohammed Aziz Umarzokov, and injuring 9 others. Between December 13th and December 14th, Neves Valente returned to Massachusetts. On December 15th, he murdered MIT professor Nuno Loureiro at Loureiro's home in Massachusetts. At some point while he was in Massachusetts, he switched the plates on the Nissan Sentra to an unregistered plate out of Maine. Immediately following Professor Loureiro's murder, Neves Valente drove to a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire, where he had rented a storage unit in November of this year. Since the December 13th shooting in Brown and the December 15th shooting in Brookline, state, local, and federal law enforcement officials have been working hand in hand around the clock to identify the shooter and prevent him from inflicting further harm. For and will continue to believe when law enforcement agencies work together, crimes are solved and the public is protected. The information we provided to you tonight would not be possible without the dedicated men and women of law enforcement in multiple districts throughout New England, including the FBI, ATF, HSI, the U.S. Marshal Service, Massachusetts State Police, Rhode Island State Police, Providence Police, Brookline Police, and the Brown University Police. In addition, prosecutors for the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office and the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and federal prosecutors from Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts all contributed to this result. I also want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi for her support in coordinating the federal response.
Can you tell us anything about his motive and the 2 sets of victims and how they might be related and how he might be related to them?
That is not information that we can share right now, but as soon as that information becomes available, we will share that with the public.
Are you able to say anything of what led you to link the 2 crimes, perhaps initially?
Can you repeat the question so we can hear you?
Question was how we were able to link him to the 2 crimes. Investigators identified the vehicle that he had rented in Boston and then drove to Rhode Island. And he was seen, the vehicle was seen outside of Brown, and there was security footage that showed a person who resembled him. there was financial investigations that were going on in the background that linked him not only to that car, but also to the hotels that he had rented and the car that he had used to not only drive to Rhode Island, but then back to Boston. And then there was the security footage that captured him within a half mile of the professor's residence in Brookline. And there is a video footage of him entering an apartment building in the location of the professor's. And then later that evening, about an hour later, in the storage unit, wearing the same clothes that he had been seen wearing right after the murder.
So you have an extensive video canvas as part of this investigation. That leaves you no doubt.
This is the evidence we have right now. We are coming to you tonight because the federal government to provide you with the information and to assure the public that law enforcement collectively believe that we have the person, that we identified the person, and that person is dead, and that he was the person responsible not only for the Brown shootings, but for the Brookline shooting.
Can you speak to, before the self-inflicted gunshot, was there any interaction between law enforcement and Neves Valente? Any words exchanged or anything like that?
No, when investigators went into the storage facility tonight to execute the federal search warrant, he was dead.
Do you think he entered there this evening?
No.
He entered an hour after what happened in Brookline?
Yes.
And do you know how long that storage, did he rent that? Like how long?
Our understanding from the financial investigation is that he had rented a storage facility at the location in Salem, New Hampshire in November.
Can you confirm whether or not he used the same weapon in the Brown shooting as he did in the MIT shooting?
Ballistics investigation was ongoing and has not been completed at this time, so we're not going to comment on that.
Can you give us any sense of how to recognize that he was the same investigators, that these two cases were related?
It was in the last 24 to 48 hours that my understanding, according to my understanding, is when the link began to be established. And that was mainly, he was using a phone that was obfuscating ability to track it. And he was using financial, not credit cards that were tied to his name. And so he was sophisticated in hiding his tracks.
According to the complaint that was unsealed, and the MIT professor had attended the same activity.
All right, you have been listening to the breaking news tonight. Two separate press conferences. Huge revelations in that mass shooting at Brown University. One, police identified the suspect after days on the run. And two, that suspect was found dead. According to police, he killed himself. We also now know this all went down in Salem, New Hampshire, where police swarmed an area with a storage facility and found a car linked to the suspect. They revealed today the Brown killings are linked to the murder of an MIT professor on Monday. Live for us tonight, CNN's Danny Freeman, who's at the scene in Salem, New Hampshire, and CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller is here with me now. John, so much information came out of both of these press conferences, one in Rhode Island, one in Massachusetts. What stood out to you?
Well, that first of all, that this individual is believed to be responsible for both of these crimes because crimes are so different. One is a mass shooting at a college where he used to attend, but 20 years ago. The other is a very personal, up-close shooting of a specific individual who he attended the same school with, not Brown University, but a school in Portugal in the 1990s. So what the grievance was, how those are connected, if they're connected, two very different crimes. But what we also learn is that police using a myriad of techniques, including to the public for help, doing an extensive video canvas, following social media, and a mystery witness who turns out to be a janitor at Brown University who first encountered this person at the end of November and the beginning of December, realizing that he was suspicious and didn't belong there, and registered that and gave that to police in an interview. Then he later posts on Reddit, after seeing the person again in the street after the shooting and basically chasing him down and saying, you know, what are you doing? And then a third time when police showed us that second person where they said, this guy is not a suspect, but we see on the video he has an encounter. All of those people, the guy from the encounter, the guy from the Reddit post, the janitor at the school who first found him suspicious in the bathroom, turn out to be the same guy, John. Police, I think he's connected to this silver car. The police then used the flock system, which is the camera system that contracts with the city of Providence to find images of that car and realize it's got a Florida plate, it's a rental, it comes back to Boston, and the rest unfurls as prosecutors and investigators have been telling. That's an incredible journey in a relatively short time with a lot of twists and turns.
A lot of twists and turns. One of the big things we heard from police is that he had 2 different license plates, one from Florida, one from Maine, I think. So he was clearly trying to evade police and figure out how to get out. So his name, it's Claudio Valente, a 48-year-old who is a former Brown student. When I say former, we're talking 2001, and that he was initially in the country on a student visa. What more did we learn about the suspect?
So really interesting. We learned he's a former Brown student from 2000 to 2001, but he comes in September of 2000, and he takes a leave of absence by April. So he's basically there 6 months. As you know, taking a leave of absence can be because a family issue came up, or it can be because you're struggling in school. And then he doesn't officially, he never comes back, but he doesn't officially withdraw until 2003. So we don't have motive. They don't have motive. They'll try to develop that based on profile of the suspect and getting deeper into his history by interviewing people around him. But you could look at it and say, in the Brown University case, it appears that he may have felt that he failed there or that he was rejected there and carried that over these years, returning back. As for the professor from MIT in Boston, that's where we have less visibility. They attended the same, they studied the same thing in Portugal,
Yes.
back in the 90s.
No.
Does he have some idea that one went on to great meteoric success in his field and he did not? Is there some resentment there? All of these, and these are questions, not answers, all of these are the layers that they're going to have to peel back in order, motive, the suspect is dead.
Right.
But in order to answer the questions that so many will have about why did this happen?
Exactly. Let us go. Thank you so much, John, for all your great reporting on this throughout. Let's go now to Danny Freeman. He is on the scene where the suspect was discovered dead. What are you learning there?
Yeah, Sarah, it's amazing that this that's really plagued New England for several days came to an end, of all places, here in Salem, New Hampshire. We're going to have a lot more to talk about this in the next hour, but I just want to share with you, this is the storage area right behind me. We've seen a tremendous amount of law enforcement activity, and just in the past minute and a half or so, a tow truck just entered through this police line behind the storage facility, presumably to go gather the car, the vehicle that led folks to this particular storage unit, where a lot of law enforcement officials say they were able to see inside and see that mask, see that satchel, see other things that indicated that their suspect, their then person of interest, was likely here. The suspect, Sarah, had a storage unit inside here. That was one of the main ways that led them to this specific facility. And then, of course, as we now know, the suspect found dead with an inflicted gunshot wound inside there. So again, a lot more to tell you about this particular space in the coming hour, but that's a very active here as the investigation concludes in Salem, New Hampshire. Sarah?
Thank you, Freeman. There on the scene, the big break in the Brown mass shooting has been found. He has been found dead by police. Special coverage continues with Laura Coates right now.
Police to this moment and to this location, a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. That's where the suspect was discovered with a fatal self-inflicted gunshot wound, all inside of a storage unit that he owned or rented. Police say that he was 48 years old, a former Brown University student. He was enrolled in a physics grad program more than 2 decades ago. Authorities say they made a major breakthrough in the case from a tip that came in just hours after they released that new footage yesterday. Now, that tip led them to a rental car, which they then found at that storage facility.
That person came forward to two Providence police officers over on the east side and said he had information, that he was that person and he had information that could help this case. And I remember last night watching his interview, and he blew this case right open. He blew it open. First, which led us to the name, which led us to the photograph of the individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence.
Now, police just released these photos. It shows the suspect at a rental car store in Boston. Authorities say that he swapped license plates on the rental, which made it harder, of course, to track him. Now, we're going to cover every angle of this story. Our reporters are fanned out across New England. Our analysts are here to unpack what we're learning about the investigation as it is unfolding before us tonight. I want to start with CNN's Brian Todd, who is in Providence, Rhode Island. He was at that news conference with law enforcement that just moments ago wrapped up. Brian, the manhunt officially over after 6 days. What did we learn about this shooter from the authorities?
We're learning a great deal, Laura, because they've finally given us a name, they've given us an age. Let me go through the basics of what they have given us tonight. This person is identified as Claudio Neves Valente, 48 years old. He is a native of Portugal, a former Brown University student, a graduate student in physics. His last known residence was in Miami, Florida. They did say that he took his own life tonight. I asked authorities specifically, did he take his own life as authorities closed in on him at that storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire? How close were they? Were they imminently approaching him? Were they getting in very close to that facility? The Attorney General, Peter Neronha, said he didn't have the answer to that question, but they do know that he took his own life tonight with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We also learned of a critical link to the MIT shooting because the FBI Special Agent in Charge, Ted Dox, did confirm that he and the victim at MIT went to the same college in Portugal. Now, after the Attorney General, Peter Neronha, can you tell me anything more about any personal dispute he had with that MIT professor, anything of that nature? How did they know each other, you know, aside from going to college together in Portugal? And Peter Neronha said, we're looking into, we don't really have some of that information yet. That's how he rented a car in Boston. He changed license plates multiple times. That the storage facility was his, that he had paid for. They don't know how long he had been in the storage facility. I specifically asked the Brown University president, Christina Paxson, when he was at Brown University, did he have any disciplinary issues, any grievances, any problems at all that were documented at that time? And remember, he was there only from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001. Christina Paxson said, we don't know the answer to that. She said, these are old records, but you can believe that they're going to be going back, pardon me, and checking some of that. So another key thing that we have not learned, and again, from what I just said, these are questions that we were asking about the motive for allegedly killing the MIT professor and the motive for opening fire at Brown. They just don't know the motive yet. They don't clearly know the motive yet. They have put together that these two crimes are connected through this one person. That the two weapons next to his body by his thighs and feet, and those are some of the key details that we do have. Laura?
And some kind of a satchel or something found by his body as well. All the questions you asked were the right ones. The answers, particularly around motive, I think that would give some, comfort is the wrong word, but some explanation, some statement to the community that has been suffering and the families who are grieving through all this tragedy. And you also said there was some key witness who really helped blow this case wide open. What can you tell us?
Right, and that was a crucial break in the case, because here's another really important piece of information here, Laura. Peter Neronha, the Attorney General of Rhode Island, just told us they didn't have this guy's name until last night at about this time. That means days went by when they had no name. It was on Wednesday afternoon that they released an image, and they did tell us about a second person who came into proximity with this person. That's the person who they wanted to speak to. I learned before this news conference that they had brought that person in and questioned him and interviewed him, and that he was not a suspect. I knew that before the news conference. But what Peter Nerone, the Attorney General, said, that second person who had come into proximity with him blew the case open. He led them to the name, he led them to the car, to the clothing, to the satchel, to a photograph. That person, he said, open. We did also learn that that person, that second person who had come into proximity with him, had some kind of a confrontation with him on the campus of Brown.
Really?
In the hours or sometime before the shooting occurred, and that the main suspect, Valente, said, "Why are you harassing me?" Apparently this person questioned why he was on campus. He appeared suspicious to him, and he had possibly followed him or at least confronted him in some way, and Valente said, "Why are you harassing me?" And then he walked away. Both of them walked away from each other, and then Valente came back apparently later and committed the shootings, allegedly.
Oh my God, what could have been unbelievable. I want to hear more about that person. Brian Todd, please stand by. I'm going to go right to CNN's Danny Freeman, who's in Salem, New Hampshire. He's actually at the scene where this manhunt ended. Danny, Brian was breaking down for us what we learned tonight. Describe the scene in front of you. What happened at this warehouse and storage facility where the suspect was found?
We watched this develop fast.
Laura, it's remarkable. Manhunt, really two manhunts over the course of several days all across New England, and 80 miles north of where Brian is right now. It ended here in Salem, New Hampshire. So right now we're on Hampshire Road, fittingly. There are a lot of storage spaces and storage facilities on this road, and this right here is the massive. This suspect was found ultimately dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And Laura, it's fascinating because when we got here, there was a tremendous amount of scene. There were at one point, we saw a massive influx of FBI agents arrive as well, and they've really been focused in the back portion of here. You've been looking at it, our viewers, I should say, have been looking at it all day through the bird's eye view of a helicopter, and right back there was the vehicle that was in question that was so critical to, again, finding and discovering the suspect. And law enforcement officials said that they were able to see inside vehicle, the mask, other pieces of evidence that ultimately made them realize, oh, this is where we're circling in on the person we've been looking for so long. Him inside of that storage facility behind me. Laura, one of him to the storage facility is that he himself, back in November, the suspect actually rented out a storage unit in here, which officials focus in on this spot. So it's a bit of a grisly scene, you have to imagine, inside there, but every person that we heard speaking in all of these various different press conferences seems certain that this was the person that they were looking for. And I'll just say one other thing, Laura. I noted at the end of the last hour, just moments ago, we saw a massive tow truck come in, go across the police tape to presumably take the car that has been at the center of this investigation back for evidence processing before. So yeah, a very, very active scene out here in Salem, New Hampshire.
Where's this
Laura.
person's body? Inside the storage facility still?
Yeah, at this point, as far as we understand, the body is still inside of the storage facility. There was a local police officer who we'd asked about that, and he had said that it had not been moved, at least since the time that we were here. And it's interesting, the whole road was shut off earlier. Us to come in closer to get this better perspective really on all of these different law enforcement officers coming in and out. And we've also been watching people in those big white evidence clothing to basically protect them from getting the scene contaminated or themselves, Laura.
I wonder what's inside that facility, any indication of motive or anything else that would give some insight. What have you heard from the residents in the area?
Well, that's the amazing thing. So like I said, this whole area is filled with a lot of storage facilities. There's also some wooded areas over there. But residents that we were speaking with in the area, they said that this is just not something that they expect to have happen in Salem, New Hampshire. It's a pretty quiet area on the Hampshire and Massachusetts. We spoke to one resident who was, again, stunned but relieved that if it had to have ended, at least it didn't end here with this law enforcement community. Take a listen.
ended up driving up here, and I ended up seeing all the commotion going down right behind us, and so I ended up driving over to see what was going on. I saw a lot of FBI agents in like tactical gear coming in and out, a lot of cops. It was before they had shut down the entire road, so I got like a good view of everything that was going on. They were looking over here. They were looking in some cars. They ended up shimmying their way into one of the cars. I'm not sure what they were looking for, but potentially evidence.
Yeah, so you saw them find one car and really work their way. Get the door open, and there was U.S. Marshals and ATF agents, and they were trying to get in there for some reason.
Wow, Danny, I mean, just thinking about all that's unfolded tonight and watching that scene now, the idea that this person's body is still inside this facility and the evidence continuing to come in. I want to turn right now to CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller, also former FBI Deputy Director McCabe. Get me here. How did we get here? What helped them crack this case wide open? It's been 6 days of a manhunt.
Well, it's fascinating, and you have one witness who emerged 3 different times in the course of this case. First, you have a maintenance employee, a custodian who works at Brown, who has an encounter with this suspect in the bathroom way back around November 28th, December 1st, and he feels this guy's suspicious and he doesn't belong there. And they have this encounter, they have words, and then the individual leaves. Then you have the events of the shooting on December 13th, and then you have that you have an individual who posts on Reddit. They should bring their attention to the silver Nissan that's parked by the Historical Society, because a suspicious guy, who was walking around is connected to that vehicle. And police investigate the Reddit post, and they look at the video, and they see that vehicle shows up on the video, but they also see that their suspect has an encounter with a person, a guy wearing a jacket with a gray hoodie. So they're like, we need to find this person and find out what was that encounter about. When they find that person, they find out that it is John again, the custodian from Brown University, who had first cited this guy as suspicious in the bathroom at that building where the shooting was at 1:45 on the day of the shooting. So he sees the subject again and confronts him in the street, and the suspect turns around and says, why are you harassing me? Here's the key. When he has that encounter, he says the suspect presses the key fob and it unlocks the gray Nissan. But when he sees this guy has noticed it, he picks it up again and walks away from it as if he's trying to disassociate himself from that car. So the police go to work with their flock camera system downtown for all the central ones, and they develop a Florida plate and they show it to John, and he says, that looks like the car. And the rest gives them a pathway to the name, seeing the individual with the same clothing at the rent-a-car company. It ends up tying them to the Boston case. But these 3 encounters with the Reddit witness, the original custodian at Brown, and then the person that they asked to come forward who then approaches police, all turn out to be the same guy.
I'm blown away at the instinct of the person who had some sort of a sense that this person did not belong there. And I just can't help but wonder, Andrew McCabe, what might have been had this person been prevented from doing what he did. I mean, authorities say the suspect used more than one set of license plates. You heard John's description, even trying to use the key fob and then walk away from that vehicle. Do you see some level of sophistication, though?
There was a sophisticated offender. We know he disguised his appearance, used the hat, the mask, that he, as you just mentioned, used switching the license plates on his vehicle, likely to avoid detection by the license plate reader technology that's deployed all over our city. We also know from the Boston press conference that took place just a little while ago that he was utilizing credit cards that did not come back to his name. So, he was clearly very aware of taking every step that he could to not leave a trace, to not show up on video in a way that could be recognized, to not, have his travels by vehicle detected by the police. Now, the thing that's amazing to me about the story that John's just told us about the witness is he is working in the building where the shooting took place as a janitor. So by that status alone, it seems like he's someone who should have been interviewed in the very, very initial canvass for witnesses after the shooting.
And he was.
And yeah, so so how did we? It just seems strange that we didn't that connection come up then. Had it, then who knows? We could maybe have avoided the tragedy on December 15th with the shooting of the MIT professor. But I mean, all this is speculative, and it's incredibly fortunate that it came together in the way.
Well, John, you said that this person had been, it's astounding that there was that encounter, there was a suspicion, there was the Reddit post, there was the after part where they're having somebody who was in close proximity. And of course, during all these intervening days, we've had a reaching out by law enforcement to the public for more information to try to crack this case. But this introduction now of a murder of an MIT professor on Monday, of course, was after the shootings on the Brown University campus. I mean, what linked these two together? Do we have some insight as to why this professor, why Brown University, and this person?
So what we have is a timeline, which is, it's useful in trying to organize this because it can get confusing. But December 1st, he arrives in Boston, he rents a car, and then heads to the area. December 13th, he has the shooting at Brown University where he tries to shoot and kill and wound as many people as he can and then escape. So it's 2 days later, on December 15th, to Boston, almost after the shooting, he travels to Boston, of Loureiro, the professor from MIT. At that point, they have a video canvas that shows him at 4 o'clock, parked half a mile away. This is the picture you're looking at now is him leaving the rental place after a car. They have the shooting where they have video of him entering the apartment building before the shooting, leaving the apartment building after the shooting, and then he goes to his storage area up in New Hampshire to either regroup, switch things, we don't know. And then, of course, he is booked on a flight today to fly out. He's supposed to return the rent-a-car. Overnight, investigators get this information, gearing up today to, we've got to him drops off the car, we've got to have people at the flight, they've got all this, and on the car and then hits the road. But at this point, they're trying to track him through license plate readers, through other things. They know both plates by this point because they've worked this out in their investigation overnight. He is using cell phones, they believe, but he's also swapping out SIM cards, which is thwarting and confusing their ability to track them. But that license plate reader pops on the Maine license plate, state of Maine, not the Florida plate that car came with. They go find that area. They canvass it till they locate that car. It's at the storage area. And then they engage with the storage area, and they're like, there is an individual. He has this rental. And then they find him inside. But that's the fast forward version. It gets us to process, but it's a motive.
It doesn't. And
we know he went to Brown. We know he was there a year, 6 months really. Then he took a leave of absence, which may be a signal that he was struggling as a student and took a leave of absence rather than go on some kind of academic discipline. He never comes back. He finally withdraws officially in 2003. But what does that have to do with his grievance against the school? Did he consider, part of his failure in life that he didn't make it through Brown? Is that what brings him back? And what does that have to do with the professor from MIT, where he never went to school, but it turns out that they attended the same school in Portugal back in the 90s. Now, we don't know, were they best friends? Were they acquaintances? Were they competitors? We know that one of them reached the heights of success in academia as a scientist, a professor, and a top guy at MIT, and we know the other didn't amount to much and will only be known for this shooting. Could that be the seeds of these two grievances? Too early to say. Not enough information to know, but we see some clues.
Andrew, we're hearing the minds of an investigator. You have one as well, trying to unpack and find motive. And my mind goes back to what might be inside of that storage space. He rented it back in November. There is obviously some premeditation, some planning to do all the things that John Miller just described. Is there within that particular facility, knowing that some people, these crimes, they want to live in infamy and have someone understand and explain why they did it? Is there some information you think might be present in that particular facility that would give some insight of any kind to the why?
There very well may be. We don't know yet. We know that a federal search warrant to search the storage facility was obtained. That's basically why we spent so much time early evening watching the tactical teams go in and out of that building. We saw also there are large trucks kind of just outside the camera shot that you're seeing now on your screen. The evidence response teams from the FBI, the trucks full of all the equipment necessary to do that sort of evidence recovery is all there. So we know that the teams are going through that storage facility right now with a fine-tooth comb. Of course, the body is still located inside. After that crime scene has been removed, and then they will go through every single. There's a lot of information. Investigators would like to find writings, journals, electronic devices, writings or documents created by Mr. Valente, or electronic devices that might reveal other facilities, other address, social media accounts, and things also that would reveal search requests. And he's got a phone on him. You want to go to see what his Google search history is like. So all of those things could help shine a light on what this person was thinking, what was motivating him to embark upon what from the surface looked to all of us, I think, like two very different, very distinct crimes. We have a mass shooting at a major university in which were, in all likelihood, that the shooter did not know and had no connection to and had never met. It seemed to fit much more in the model of mass shootings, where a shooter working out a grievance or an anger or a mental, psychological crisis and looking to harm as many people as they can. The other crime, the murder of the MIT professor, very different. It takes place not at the university, but in the professor's home. So this has got to be some way that these two people were connected, had a previous relationship or acquaintance or something like that, maybe professional, maybe academic, who knows. But somehow he found the location of that home and managed to get himself into it to encounter his victim face to face. So without understanding the connections between these two crime scenes, and initially that was, I think most people assumed those were two totally independent acts. But of course, now tonight we know differently.
This man is dead. The investigation very much. John Miller, Andrew McCabe, both stand by. Thank you. We have more on our breaking news tonight as we learn more about the suspect and the new clues tonight.
They were all up here with us. We wouldn't fit here, but it was remarkable to see the cooperation between the FBI agents, the ATF agents, the HSI agents, the Providence police detectives, the state police detectives, our prosecutors. And I will say that everybody brought a certain expertise to the table. But it is nevertheless a sad moment when you think about those young people who were hurt, injured, or worse, or two of them are now deceased. You know, to me, this was always going to be an investigation where something was going to break it open. We were going to pull threads. We were going to gather evidence that would lead us in a particular direction. And I will say that if we were with you less than, well, I guess now more than 24 hours ago, we had that picture of that second individual. And I would say within an hour, no more than two, I think it was under an hour, that person came forward to two police officers over on the east side and said he had information, that he was that person and he had information that could help this case. I watching his interview, and he blew this case right open. He blew it open. And that's how these cases sometimes go. You can feel like you're not making a lot of progress. You can feel like you're chasing leads and they don't work out. But the team keeps going because, you know, those of us with experience know that you're going to pull a lot of threads, and it's not always the first one that's going to get you where you need to go. But when you do crack it, you crack it. And that person led us to the car, which led us to the name, which led us to the photographs of that individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence, that matched the satchel that we see here in Providence. He was found dead with a satchel, with two firearms, and evidence in the car that that matches exactly what we see at the scene here in Providence. And so I know that you and the public have questions about how we got yesterday, where all we could share with you was a photograph of someone to where we got to tonight. And so we got a state arrest warrant for murder today that was signed by a district court judge for this individual. There won't be a prosecution now, of course, but that affidavit is on our website, and you will be able to see more and read more about how this investigation unfolded. I won't get you all the way there because there are some things that happened afterwards which led us to this suspect in New Hampshire. But it will, I think, tell you, give you a sense of the work that went into this by the line prosecutors and the line agents and detectives from the agencies that work so well together. So, you know, as I said, it's with mixed emotions. It is unimaginable, the pain that the parents and families of the deceased are feeling tonight and will feel undoubtedly for quite a while. But I hope that by bringing this person to justice, that we can at least give them the beginnings of some measure of closure. And I want to thank you all for your patience with me when I got a little testy with some of you. Those of you who know me from Rhode Island, you know that's my nature. So I really want to thank you for your patience. Thank you.
General. As has been said several times, the partnership with the FBI was invaluable. And so it's a pleasure to introduce Special Agent in Charge of FBI, Ted Dox.
Thank you, Mayor. And good evening. My name is Ted Dox, Special Agent in Charge of FBI Boston. We got him. Shortly before 9 o'clock tonight, the FBI SWAT team executed authorized search warrants at a storage unit facility in Hampshire Road in Salem, New Hampshire. This is where we located Claudio Neves Valente, the individual who we believe was responsible for the Brown shooting. Developments in an intense 5-day manhunt, and is a result of an incredible amount of work dedicated by the law enforcement team standing here before you tonight. Every single agency brought their unique skills and expertise to this investigation. And we're motivated by the victims and survivors of this horrific incident. Even though the suspect was found dead tonight, our work is not done. There are many questions that need to be answered. There's a lot of evidence that needs to be processed, and most importantly, the victims and their families deserve special care and consideration. The FBI and our partners across Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire will continue to search for answers for the victims, survivors, and their families to see what motivated this individual to carry out such a senseless act of violence. From the onset of this critical incident, it's been all hands. The FBI deployed approximately 500 special agents, analysts, task force officers, personnel to assist our partners in this investigation. In addition to this extra manpower, all our specialty teams were activated, including Evidence Response Team, SWAT, Divert, and Victim Services Response Team, just to name a few. So thanks to you, the media, as well as to the community. My sincere thanks to Colonel Perez, Colonel Weaver, Brown University PD, and all of our partners. This was truly a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Another critical partner at every step along the way was the ATF. I'd like to introduce Special Agent in Charge of the ATF, Tom Greco.
Good evening. My name is Tom Greco, the Special Agent in Charge of ATF Boston. From the moment 911 reports of the shooting at Brown University came through, there's been an around-the-clock effort to identify the perpetrator and to protect the community. The men and women of ATF, including our special agents, our intelligence research specialists, and our support personnel, have been proud to support and be part of that effort, leveraging our unique experience, dedicated investigators, canine handlers, and crime gun intelligence technology such as NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, to compare ballistic evidence, and our other available tools to support the investigation to help identify Claudio Neves Valente as the individual that we believe was responsible. ATF's mission, first and foremost, is to protect communities from violent crime. Each individual in this country deserves to live in peace and security in their homes, in their schools, in their places of worship, and in the streets. The actions of Claudio Neves Valente stole and terrorized the community. I'd like to emphasize to the public, this was a highly dangerous individual capable of extreme violence. And we're happy to have been part of this investigation and proud to have worked with our partners to identify him and see this through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. From the very outset on Saturday, from our first press conference in the fire station to today, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee has been by Providence's side every step of the way. The City of Providence is incredibly grateful for the governor's support, the state police, not just their assistance with the investigation, but in supporting the broader community. It's a pleasure to introduce Governor Dan McKee.
Thanks, Mayor, and clearly your staff, I feel the same way with the team that you have, that we were happily able to assist. And as a former mayor, many of here in the audience know that I've been a mayor, some don't, but I empathize and sympathize with the position that you were in and the fact that you needed people to follow the lead of the Providence police and to partner in with some extraordinary people, whether it's with the FBI or the ATF, and of course our state police as well. From the very beginning, my thoughts as a dad was with the families who suffered from the shooting. The unthinkable happened in our state. The unthinkable happened in Providence. The unthinkable happened at Brown University. And we're going to be forever changed. But our commitment from the state level is to continue to support Providence, Brown, and the people of the state are going to take a great deal of time. But I do say this. The professionalism that I saw in the law enforcement should make everyone that lives in our state and beyond our borders feel very safe These things happen, but it requires some professional help and law enforcement to bring it to the conclusion that we've been able to bring it to. So, Colonel, thank you, everybody involved. And again, we will stand with Providence and Brown University and the people of the state of Rhode Island to provide the help that will be needed in the recovery in a trauma like this.
Thank you, Governor. Throughout the year, the Rhode Island State Police is an incredible partner to Providence, but during this investigation, their support was invaluable. I introduce Colonel of the State Police, Colonel Weaver.
My name is Colonel Darnell Weaver, the Superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police. I want to begin by recognizing the excellent and exceptional efforts of the Providence Police Department and Colonel Oscar Perez. From the very first moments of this investigation, the Providence Police Department has worked collaboratively and relentlessly day and night on this investigation while protecting our capital city. Their detectives followed facts, developed evidence, and pursued every credible lead. Colonel Perez's leadership has been steady and decisive, focused on identifying the person responsible for this tragedy. As always, our troopers stepped up, working shoulder to shoulder with the Providence Police and our local, state, and federal partners. I want to give particular recognition to our detectives, whose diligence and dedication contributed to this investigation. Leadership, bring intelligence, resources, and expertise. This has truly been an all-hands-on-deck investigation, as virtually every trooper has taken extra shifts to help support the efforts in Providence, and I have never been prouder to be a member of the Rhode Island State Police. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Rhode Island State Police, and this case stands out among one of the most challenging in our state. The sheer volume of the complexity of the investigation and the intense public interest played an extraordinary demands on everyone involved. Despite that pressure, investigators remained disciplined, methodical, and focused on facts. We are grateful for the assistance of the public, particularly those who shared our information, provided tips, and gave us doorbell camera footage and access to their property. We are also thankful for the ongoing support of Rhode Islanders. We know that you have been with us through this entire investigation. I also want to be very clear about something else. Criminal investigations are grounded in evidence, not speculation. The endless barrage of misinformation, disinformation, rumors, leaks, and clickbait were not helpful in this investigation. Distractions and unfounded criticisms do not support this work. They complicate it and threaten to undermine the justice we seek for the victims and the grieving families. Despite these challenges, good police work, and we have lessons that we can bring forward from these long days ahead. Community and the people of Rhode Island, be assured that this case reflects the law enforcement community and what we are capable of, and that we are committed to this state. We will continue to support the victims and the broader community as the healing continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Providence is so proud to be home to Brown University, and we are committed to working together with them in the future as they help heal their community as we do our broader Providence community. We continue to give condolences to the deceased and our prayers to those who are recovering. The leader of Brown has been a great partner through this whole process. I'd like to introduce President Christina Paxson from Brown.
Thank you. You know, nothing can really fully bring closure to the lives that have been shattered over the past week, but this may allow our community to move forward and begin a path of repair and recovery and healing. I want to thank the dedicated law enforcement agencies that have worked so tirelessly on this case, really around the clock, as well as our neighbors and others who participated in tipping tips and helping with the investigation. I hope that this outcome tonight brings an increased sense of safety for our community at Brown and the surrounding area. This has been a period of fear and anxiety for many people, and now perhaps some form of relief. Truly, this week has been devastating for our community in a number of ways, including the experiences that members of our community have had with being targeted by online rumors and accusations. And I hope that this development also means an end to this truly troubling activity. So we remain focused on the safety and security of our community and in support for the victims of this senseless violence. Now, we know the public and our own Brown community members will want to know more about the individual now identified by law enforcement as the suspect in last weekend's shooting. And we can confirm the following to the best of our knowledge, based on our review in the very short time since law enforcement.
Breaking news.
I'm Alex Michelson, live in Los Angeles. We are following breaking news. The man suspected of killing 2 students at Brown University and a professor at MIT has been found dead. Police say he is 48-year-old Claudio Valente, a former student at Brown. Officials found his body in a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire, with 2 firearms, a satchel, and evidence that was matching the Rhode Island crime scene. The U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts later announced that Valente was also responsible for killing an MIT professor near Boston on Monday. New Hampshire's Attorney General says a Brown University custodian and a man who came into contact with Valente, quote, blew this case right open.
To me, this was always going to be an investigation where something was going to break it open. We were going to pull threads. We were going to gather evidence that would lead us in a particular direction. And I will say that if we were with you less than, well, I guess now more than 24 hours ago, we had that picture of that second individual. And I would say within an hour, no more than 2, I think it was under an hour, that person came forward to 2 Providence police officers over on the east side and said he had information, that he was that person and he had information that could help this case. And I remember last night watching his interview, and he blew this case right open. He blew it open. And that's how these cases sometimes go. You can feel like you're not making a lot of progress. You can feel like you're chasing leads and they don't work out. But the team keeps going because, you know, those of us with experience know that you're going to pull a lot of threads, and it's not always the first one that's going to get you where you need to go. But when you do crack it, you crack it. And that person led us to the car, which led us to the name, which led us to the photographs of that individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence, that matched the satchel that we see here in Providence. He was found dead with a satchel, with 2 firearms, and evidence in the car that that matches exactly what we see at the scene here in Providence.
We've got team coverage. CNN's Danny Freeman is live in Salem, New Hampshire. CNN's Brian Todd is live in Providence, Rhode Island. Danny, let's start with you and that manhunt and what happened behind you.
Yeah, Alex, amazingly, after 6 days of frantic search really all across New England, 2 cases ultimately were closed here in Salem, New Hampshire, of all places, and that's because police discovered 48-year-old Claudio Valente dead with a gunshot wound in this storage facility behind me. Now, earlier Thursday, we had gotten indication that police had come and convened on this particular area. And Alex, I'll just tell you, when we got here, it was quite chaotic. There were a ton of neighbors that were out here just looking at the spectacle, an enormous amount of media presence here, and of course, police really swarming this entire area, checking a number of storage unit facilities, and of course, this one behind us. And the whole reason that they ended up here was because they'd found an abandoned rental car that they had connected to the suspect here, Valente, and then also they realized that Valente himself had a connection to this specific storage facility. More on that in a moment, but basically when they found that abandoned car, according to the Rhode Island Attorney General, they could see evidence from outside of the car looking in that right away confirmed that there was a connection to the Brown University shooting. And then, because they had identity of Valente, they also were able to discover that Valente himself had a storage unit that he started renting back in November in this particular complex. So, just before 9 p.m., Alex, the FBI executed a search warrant in the storage facility behind me, specifically in that storage unit, and that's where they found the suspect dead with that self-inflicted gunshot wound, and then, as you heard of the soundbite right there, also 2 firearms, and crucially, that satchel that all of us saw in so much of that surveillance video that had been released earlier this week from Brown University. Now, Alex, we've been out here for many hours. We've seen investigators out here all night, presumably inside that facility, combing over the entire storage unit where, again, Valente was found. But also we've seen them outside here really combing over a car as well, presumably the car that led them to this spot in the first place. And then we actually saw that car being wrapped in a silver tarp and taken away, again, presumably to be analyzed for more evidence. And investigators really hoping that maybe information inside there or inside the car can point to what may have led this suspect to commit, allegedly, these 2 really horrific acts. Now, the last thing I'll say, Alex, is I spoke to a lot of residents out here who, frankly, were stunned that this manhunt, really these 2 manhunts, ended up here in Salem, New Hampshire. But there was truly relief that this nightmare in New England finally has come to an end. Alex?
Yeah, you think about it, such a sort of random place for this whole thing to end. Brian Todd, you were inside this press conference that went for over an hour, and then you spoke to the police chief. What was it like being a part of that? Give us some behind the scenes, and what did the police chief tell you?
Well, Alex, excuse me, it was kind of surreal being in there the entire time because there was just so much information coming. But there is still one key piece that is outstanding, and that is motive. I asked the police chief about that again after the news conference ended. Here's what he had to say.
We don't have a motive. As you know, this developed extremely quickly. At this point, we're going to look further into it, working very closely with our partners, our federal partners, to find out more. But I can tell you that the city is relieved.
So the city is relieved, but they don't have a clear motive for the shootings at Brown University and the killing of the professor at MIT. But officials did say that the suspect, again identified as Claudio Neves Valente, 48 years old, of Portuguese origin, did attend the same university in Portugal as that MIT professor at the same time in the 1990s, clearly inferring that the 2 of them knew each other. And we did learn from a law enforcement source talking to CNN that the alleged suspect specifically targeted that professor, that authorities believe that he targeted that professor. A couple of other key details, that this suspect was 48 years old, that he had taken, he had enrolled at Brown in the fall of 2000, and basically, he did not drop out, but he stopped taking classes in the spring of 2001 and then formally withdrew a couple of years later. He was in a graduate program for physics. He did not get a degree, according to the school president. I specifically asked her, were there any disciplinary issues when he was there? Were there any disputes, anything like that involving him, which might speak to a possible motive, even though it was 25 years ago? She said, none that we know of. She said, but these are old records. So this is something, Alex, that they're going to go back and look at to see what possible motive that he had for the shooting. But the president of the university did say that as a physics student at that time, he would have probably spent a lot of time in that building where these shootings were committed. One other quick thing, you played the soundbite of Peter Nerono, the Attorney General for Rhode Island, talking about this other person who had confronted him on campus a couple of hours before that. The police chief also talked to me about that. Both law enforcement officials telling us that person really blew the case open. He came forward on Wednesday, shortly after they had put out kind of a bulletin asking for him to come forward. They knew he had been in proximity with them. He came forward and gave them details. According to the Attorney General, he said, quote, he led us to the car, to the name, to the photographs, to the clothing, and to the satchel that he was carrying. That person's involvement critical. Alex, he had confronted him in a bathroom in the same building that the shooting occurred, according to the police chief, a couple of hours beforehand. He had words with him. He even chased him at one point because the suspect was acting so suspicious. The suspect, according to the police chief, turned around and said, like, why are you harassing me? And then the two men walked away from each other. But it's very chilling when you think of this one person coming so close to him, knowing that he's acting suspiciously a couple of hours before the shooting, confronting him, having words with him, chasing him, and then the two men separate. You know, you think of what could have possibly gone one way or the other at that point. But this person's also considered kind of a hero tonight because he came forward with that critical information that led them to the suspect. And it was only about this time last night, according to the Attorney General, Alex, that they didn't even have a name. So all of this unfolding very, very quickly.
Yeah, and that decision to put out that video and ask for this person of interest to come forward seemed to work because he saw it and came forward and gave him that information. Brian Todd, Danny Freeman, who have been working this all day and all night. It's after 1 o'clock in the morning on a chilly night in New England. Thank you both for your tireless reporting. Really appreciate it. Joining me live now from the much warmer Palm Springs, California, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Bobby, we got so much information that came at us. What stood out to you based off of your experience?
The connection he had both with Brown University and with the MIT professor. I mean, I really thought this was going to be more of a random type of thing or ideological type of thing, but it looks like he had, you know, a personal connection to the MIT professor, having gone to school together, and then, you know, obviously a connection to Brown University and that very building where he probably attended classes back in 2000.
And yet the way he carried them out, so different, right?
So different. So one is very personal, up close. This is somebody I know, somebody I went to school with, probably resented some of the success that the professor had. That professor was a world-renowned expert in his field and connected kind of to the field of physics, which the suspect was, or the killer was pursuing a PhD in. That interests me. But yeah, much more personal. And then certainly the Brown University shooting was much more impersonal and much more random, that he just decided to select that room and that group of innocent people to kill. It'll never make any sense, and it's just heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and it's got to be so upsetting for those family members, the randomness of it. Meanwhile, you were on with us, a few days back, talking about the fact that it seemed like they were at a complete dead end in terms of the FBI, that they were throwing a Hail Mary by putting this video out there. This is what you do when you don't know anything. And yet, what do you make of the fact that it seems like the video paid off?
Yeah, well, that's why you do it, because sometimes it does work. It's, probably a little bit better chances than a Hail Mary, although if Aaron Rodgers is throwing it, it's probably about the same. But I think that, I think sometimes those work. And when you are doggedly pursuing an investigation, you do everything in your power to do it. You throw stuff out there. The media helps greatly. They're pretty much partners in this. They're the ones that get it out to the public and keep on the story, and that's how people see it, and that's how breaks come. And that's what they got in this case. They got the break they needed by staying with the story, by staying with keeping the story alive, and by the media keeping the story alive, and that's how they got the big break.
It's interesting to me that individual that's being called the hero tonight did not come forward before that video came out, though. That he didn't come forward with that information right when it happened.
Yeah, I've heard him described as a homeless man and alternatively as a janitor. Sometimes people living on the street, they are hesitant to go to authorities. They don't think the authorities will believe them, that kind of thing. So I think this person may have put it, or somebody put it on Reddit, put the tip about the car on Reddit. And then somebody saw it, alerted the police to, somebody should follow up on this person. And then, of course, they got the video and they put it out, and the person said, oh, that's me. They want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to me as a suspect. They want to talk to me as somebody who came into contact with the suspect at the time. And so I think it gave them a bit of a cushion, a comfort level, if you will, to go to authorities that he may not have had initially, but when they came out yesterday and said, look, we just want to talk to this person, we want to know what they know, what they saw, I think that may have given him that level of comfort to say, okay, I can go talk to the police directly now, instead of trying to get this information out otherwise. And he says, I saw him use the key fob to open the doors of that car and then to lock it again and then get away from it. And then when he walked away, the witness kind of walked up to the car, looked in the car, noticed that the license plate had been tampered with, or it was a Florida license plate or something. And so he had very, very vital information. And once it was in the hands of the right people, the case was concluded quickly.
Bobby Chacon, who has talked with us throughout this process here on The Story Is, and it's nice to be able to talk to you now that there is a resolution and it seems like there's no longer a threat out there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks.
Some news tonight. The U.S. is pausing its diversity visa lottery program. Officials say the Brown University shooting suspect used the program to enter the country legally. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posting this on social media late tonight, saying that the suspected shooter entered the U.S. via the visa lottery in 2017, was granted a green card. She says, quote, the heinous individual should never have been allowed in our country, end quote. The State Department says the program grants up to 55,000 immigrant visas each year from countries with low rates of immigration to the U.S. In the wake of the mass shooting at Brown, the community is now looking towards healing and recovery. We'll hear from the university's president, a current student. Our coverage continues after the break.
The unthinkable happened in our state. The unthinkable happened in Providence. The unthinkable happened at Brown University. And we're going to be forever changed. But our commitment from the state level is to continue to support Providence, Brown, and the people of the state of Rhode Island in the recovery. That's going to take a great deal of time. But I do say this, the professionalism that I saw in the law enforcement should make everyone that lives in our state and beyond our borders feel very safe.
We're following the breaking news. The manhunt for the Brown University shooter over. The suspect dead. Authorities connecting shooter Claudio Neves Valente to not only the mass shooting at Brown, but also the murder of an MIT professor. In a second, we will be hearing from the Providence police chief live right here on CNN. As we await that important moment, I want to turn to former FBI Special Agent Daniel Brunner and criminologist Casey Jordan. Thank you both for being here. Casey, we begin with you here because Brown University officials confirmed that the suspect